Right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to another class that we're holding here, getting you ready for DAME and EDAM changes. It's the settlements continuation training. It is from the DAME, EDAM, and EDAM ISO Balancing Authority Participation Rules. These projects are moving along and having big impacts on our settlements, and especially our settlements folks that are working really super hard to get everything validated, get everything working for go live. So we did have a couple of follow-up questions from the last class that we are a couple of the topics that we kind of carved out to go into a little deeper dive on. You still have the market sim meetings and the settlement user groups where you're getting a lot of great information. And so this is just a couple of key points that have been asked about. So we do have, my name is Heidi Carter. I'm one of the lead customer education trainers here in the customer readiness team that is part of the stakeholder engagement and customer experience division. And so we've been tasked with doing the training. We're developing the EDAM training as fast as we can as things continue to evolve. So we do have a couple of places where we post our materials. We have our training center that is on the California ISO website. We highly encourage you to go there, find information, where you'll also find this material and the recording within 3 business days of this class. So we are recording, we will be posting, and we will be posting the presentation as well. All right, with that, we do have a couple of subject matter experts on the call, and as we go forward, you're going to hear from them. And so we'll just, with no further ado, we'll get going, but you will be hearing from them throughout. So in advance, thank you to our subject matter experts for their continual guidance and input. And we have Bo Beljean from our team. He is our producer today. So we highly encourage you to ask questions throughout this class. Put your questions in the chat. That's a great way to engage. And Bo will be working with our subject matter experts on the back end to get answers. And so, yeah, today's training presentation will end up being on our training center. So we'll send out an email that has a link to that, but it's not posted publicly yet. So a little bit of housekeeping. Again, ask questions in the chat. Please make sure that you remain muted so we don't get any kind of echoing, or you don't say something that you don't want anybody to hear. Raise your hand through the tool, and we're happy to call on you. So just a real quick, brief, how are EDAM, DAME, and EDAM ISO BA participation initiatives related. Here's how they're going. You've got the enhancements that are being made as part of the DAME initiative, the day ahead market enhancements. You've got the extended day ahead market, where we're expanding our markets to include our adjacent entities that are currently participating in the WEIM, the Western Energy Imbalance Market. And then we also have the EDAM ISO BAA participation rules addressing unique aspects of how the ISO is going to participate in EDAM, because as we move forward and when we refer to EDAM entities, ISO falls under that category as well. So we've shared this information before, but just kind of to be clear, when we're talking about EDAM entity, they're balancing area authorities that participate in EDAM. So like I said, they're currently WEIM entities that are transitioning into becoming EDAM entities. They provide the inputs such as market limits, outages, transmission information, et cetera. And they can also be an SC representing loads and resources within the balancing authority area should they hold such responsibilities. We've got the market operator and the real-time market operator. It's a separate role within the ISO, staffed by personnel. Those of you that are in WEIM have dealt with them. but it's an independent operation of both of the regional markets for EDAM, once that goes live, and also WEIM currently. And then there are scheduling coordinators. You're certified to do business with the ISO, participate in the market, submit bids, outages, manage coordinated operations of facilities, and process settlements. So just a quick overview of kind of the different roles. This particular training is intended for settlement staff, mainly for the scheduling coordinators within the ISO balancing authority area, but also the extended day-ahead market scheduling coordinators, as well as any stakeholders that are engaged in the Western energy markets. You just want to stay informed. So but that's kind of who we're targeting, especially our main audience are the SCs and the EDAM entities. So in this class today, we're going to cover 3 topics. We're going to cover the imbalance reserve Tier 1 and Tier 2, and also the reliability capacity Tier 1 and Tier 2 settlements. We will go over imbalance reserve portion of the FRP, the flexible ramp product, as well as resource sufficiency evaluation. So let's get started. The imbalance reserve and reliability capacity Tier 1 and Tier 2 settlements. So first, we're going to level set by identifying what what the imbalance reserves are and reliability capacity, and why they exist in DAME and EDAM. So these products were introduced to make sure that the system can handle any kind of uncertainty that may occur between the day-ahead forecast and what actually happens in real time. So, you saw in a couple slides back that, day-ahead flows into real time. There's a relationship there. So think of the imbalance reserves as kind of a safety net. So they provide upward and downward ramping capability so that we can quickly respond if net load changes. The reliability capacity works alongside that, making sure that each one of the balancing authority areas, or BAAs, that they ensure that they're bringing enough physical capacity to the table to keep the system reliable. So imbalance reserves, those are determined through hourly evaluations that identify when additional energy is needed for a trade hour. These reserves provide capacity above the day-ahead schedule to ensure that we have real-time dispatch, that real-time dispatch can meet the demand forecast plus any upward uncertainty. So this process addresses expected variations in load and supply between the day-ahead market and the real-time market using net load forecasts, which is the demand minus wind and solar output, and historical uncertainty data. So hourly analysis compares advanced energy purchases to the real-time needs, and differences dictate the type of amount of reserves required, which can vary throughout the day. So through DAME and EDAM, the market participants will be benefiting from the netting uncertainties across the system, reducing the need to carry imbalance reserves individually. We've also got the reliability capacity up and capacity down. And that's another enhancement. It's a change to the RUC process, which is our residual unit commitment process, which is currently one of the day-ahead market processes that happens after the integrated forward market, after the market is cleared. So this enhancement is a change to that RUC process, and it introduces a reliability capacity product. So unlike the existing RUC process, which procures additional capacity to meet the forecasted demand, your reliability capacity actually provides both upward and downward dispatch capability, making sure that each of the entities have sufficient physical supply that is scheduled into the day-ahead timeframe to meet their balancing area, authority areas load forecast. So both reliability capacity products are hourly requirements, and the BAAs at the BAA level and will be awarded at the resource level to meet that requirement. So in the same fashion as awards for imbalance reserves, reliability capacity awards will come from bids across the entire market footprint. And then SCs, your scheduling coordinators, they can submit bids for reliability capacity up and reliability capacity down and may receive hourly awards, but for only one of those, where for the imbalance reserve, you can get awards for both up and down. For reliability capacity, it's one or the other. Oops, sorry, I went too far. So just a little bit of the differences between these. They're both new products, but they're both for capacity, but they serve a little different purpose in the day-ahead market. So the imbalance reserves, they're like mentioned, based on historical data. They're designed to manage uncertainty and load, wind and solar. They require both up and down reserves for each hour, and the scheduling coordinators may receive hourly awards, as I mentioned, for one or both reserve types. Reliability capacity, on the other hand, is specific to a unique trade date, ensuring that there's enough capacity purchased in the day-ahead market. So its requirement is for either up or down capacity, and that's for each hour. And scheduling coordinators may only receive an hourly award for one of those capacity types. But in short, the imbalance reserves focus on uncertainty, while the reliability capacity focus on securing sufficient supply. There are some similarities and some differences for imbalance reserve and reliability capacity, and for Tier 1 and Tier 2. So when we get to, you can see here, you've got a kind of a two-tier allocation for both the IR and the RC for imbalance reserve up and down. And sorry, there's a typo there that I missed. That should be in the end of a parenthesis. And the reliability capacity up and down for which is RCU or RCD. Those costs are allocated first to the main contributors, and that is for need to procure respective products. Tier 1 is capped by the lower price between the average or derived price per the balancing authority area, dividing total cost to procure the product by the total product aware or the total Tier 1 allocation quantities per balancing authority area. So the main contributors that would receive these allocations would be imbalance reserves. That would be the generation, imports, and exports and load. And for reliability capacity, it would be the net virtual awards and unexpected imbalance energy. Sounds like we've got somebody. There we go. Right. So some additional similarities and differences for the imbalance reserve and reliability capacity. Sorry, so just saw something come up. Both IR and RC costs are reduced by no pay for awards. So the latter is the responsibility of resource owners who receive the product awards. And then after allocating those to Tier 1, any remaining costs are allocated to Tier 2, which is spread to the measured demand in the California ISO. So let's look at a high-level example of the imbalance reserve tier, that should say Tier 1 and Tier 2 allocation. Let's say the system needed 500 megawatts of imbalance reserve. So based on uncertain conditions, we may have found we don't need the full 500 megawatts, so we procured 480 megawatts. And then that left 20 megawatts of relaxation since we're not going to collect on the residual. To allocate those, what was procured for the imbalance reserve up in this case, we collect for that 480 megawatts in Tier 1 and Tier 2, and then the first tier is for those resources that had the obligations. The balance is whatever is left over from what we collected in Tier 1 that goes into Tier 2. So this is just a very high level kind of idea of how that works. And you can find more about these, and these are the charge codes that apply to the imbalance reserve up and down that have more of these calculations, and which we're going to go into next. And Mel is actually going to take us through those. So, and then for imbalance reserve, that's for imbalance reserve up and down. The next should say reliability capacity up and down. And so now we're going to go into the formulas. And so Mel, if you want to take the wheel from here, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you to kind of go through these next few slides that go through the formulas in a little more detail.
Please?
What's that?
Question on the phone, please.
Okay.
Jen Mank has put her hand up on my behalf. My name is Ken Donelman, work for Pacificor. If I can, before we get into the formula, just pull you back to slide 13. A slight question on the language regarding tier 2 allocation. The last bullet is qualified by measured demand in CAISO. Did you mean for that language to draw a distinction between how it works inside of the CISO balancing authority as opposed to other EDAM balancing authorities?
Yeah, I'll answer that, Ken. Hi, good morning. Yeah, this is actually by BA. We meant metered load by BA. So you can will replace that.
So it's the
That's how
same then is what you're
yeah,
saying in
yeah,
all
per BA,
EDAM.
yeah.
Yeah.
In all BA. And the metered load will not be commingled across BA. So it will the calculations be the allocations are by BA. So package and package will be different from CISO. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll give that in example. All right, I'll describe the next slide. Oh no,
This one?
yeah, we're not really going through much about this. We're just showing here that the allocation. We're looking at the contributors we mentioned before. In the case of imbalance reserves, we're looking at generators having contributed to the need to procure the imbalance reserve for the interval. We'll have that for generators. You can see on the sub-bullet the tier quantities. The tier quantities for generators, for instance, if they deviate from their dead energy, and we compare that with the capacity that they have at the time of the FMM, we will see that contributes towards the need to procure. Similar thing for imports, exports, unload, with varied calculations for the cost of the deviation will be counted as tier 1 allocation basis. So it depends on the resource type, and you can see how we are computing those deviations. Then we add those deviations across multiple resources towards the BA SC. And then it's better to look at the example actually. So we'll breeze through. You can move to the next slide.
Did you want? I see
Yeah,
Chenyu has
next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please.
uh,
It will be easier with the simpler formula next year. This one.
okay. Okay.
Let's see. Is your question, Chonyu? Maybe let's look into this first.
Yeah, I think that Alva asked quite a few questions on the chat, and some are specific to the slides. Can you address those?
Sure.
Thank you.
The difference between tier 1, tier 2 for imbalance reserves, the tier 1 applies to load only. Oh, yeah. In a way, use it here. Tier 2 is simply the remainder after we have accounted for the main contributors for the cost to procure the product. And therefore, it is actually like peanut butter to, in this case, meter load. Yeah, tier 2 usually across the charge codes we have, mostly is spread to measure demand or metered load sometimes. Okay. I'll let others take care of the questions on the side of the chat, and then we'll proceed with the what's in the main slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this one, we collect the costs, for instance. Yeah, regardless of the product. you start with the total cost, which is usually the awards times the pricing. You sum across all the awards for the entire BA. That will be the total cost for the BA. That gets allocated to the BA. So the cost for the product for Pacific Corp, or let's say a different BA, will be $1,000 in this case. And then we get a total of the award again across the different resources for that BA. Was in megawatts, say 500. And then when we look at the main contributors allocation quantities, it varies by if it's imbalance reserves or if it's by resource, reliability capacity. Let's say the total allocation quantities across the resources across the SCs for the BA is 200 for simplicity. Then we compute what we call an average price, which is the cost divided by the award. And then we also compute a derived price, which is like a temporary thing or calculation, which is also the cost, but now divided by the total allocation quantities. So in this case, we have $2 and $5. Then what we call a steer price is just the minimum between those two. Once we have that, then we have the basis for allocating what would be put first in tier 1 before we compute a remainder towards tier 2. So for example here, let's say this is a per BA calculation. Let's say there are 3 SCs in that BA, and the allocation quantities across the resources or virtual awards and UI in the case of reliability capacity is like this: 100, 75, and 25, which totals to 200. So the tier 1 allocation would be the product of the tier 1 price with their allocation quantity per SC. So the 100 multiplied by 2 becomes 200, 75, 150, 25, 50. The total tier cost would be 400. So that would be the tier 1 costs that can be attributed to the main contributors of the need to procure the product. So whatever remains then becomes the tier 2, which is allocated to meter load for the BA. All right, I'll pause. Let's see if you have questions on this.
All right, we've got Alba. Go ahead, Alba.
Yeah, this may be going too far into the weeds, Melkor, but so this product is being procured for a particular set of BAAs in the EDAM model. When the allocation is done in tier 2, is it always done for all BAAs, or for example, if there are BAAs that are not pooling their imbalance reserves because of RSE failures, does that change anything? Are there, or is that a second tier of issue that one would deal with? But is it actually an issue?
Yeah.
Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so there's a separation for sure when we're procuring the products, because the need of a different BA would not directly influence the need of another BA. So we have products and services that take care of the sufficiencies of the different BAs to begin with.
So the assumption here
so
is that
yeah,
the case where these three SCs are all sharing in the obligation, the procurement.
and these are
therefore
all
they're
under
paying for
the
it.
same BA. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
Okay,
the
got it.
assumption here is the calculation per BA. So once we know that this is the cost that was needed, and we said we will attribute first to why did we even have to procure specific to base. Some might not even have a need for the specific product on a particular interval. So there's nothing to allocate in that case. Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Great,
All right.
thank you, Alba. Any other questions, or? And I wanted to thank Manoj and Uma for answering some of the questions in the chat. We really appreciate you taking care of that. So if you guys don't have the chat open, I highly recommend you checking that out. Anybody else? Any other questions?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat so far or hands raised.
Okay. All right. Back to you, Mel. Anything else you want to add for this section?
Yeah, if they don't have questions, again, this is of course simplified. There are variations like we're subtracting balance quantities for contracts. Of course, you will see that in the draft tech docs, but that won't change as long as we put the right subtraction. Thank you.
All right. I do see a hand raised from Chen Yu. Go ahead, Chen Yu.
Yeah, I have a question here. Thank you. This is very helpful. In terms of the meter demand, right, the tier 2 cost to be allocated to the meter demand. So in the validation process, I'm trying to think. So for us, how will we know what is our allocation? Where can we look at the input? Is it something visible here? I'm thinking we can look
It's
at
the
Uma.
yeah.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh, you're asking. This is the usual meter demand. Actually, it's called meter load because we're not including exports. It's the usual meter quantity specific to the load.
So
Load
basically,
resource type.
yeah, and this was this case. You just I'm just gonna use PG&E.
Yeah, I think Uma can
So will
help
be
us with
as
if you're tracing something.
PCG2.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Shanu? Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mel. So I'm just going to, Mel provided the correct response. I'm just going to add on to it. So we had, for initial settlement statement, if PG&E is submitting the meter load to ISO,
Mhm.
you will be
Mhm.
able to see the tier 1, tier 1 and tier 2, tier 2.
Right.
You will be able to see the tier 2. But on the recal, if PG&E is not submitting the meter data, on the initial settlement, you will not be able to see any deviation in any of the charge code, tier 1 or tier 2. But on the recalc, as part of meter estimation, we are doing negative 3% reduction. During that time, you will be able to see both charge codes, tier 1 and tier 2.
Uma,
yeah.
I understand the current market sim structure of the meter, but
Right.
in bigger picture, I'm just want to know. So in this case, to the meter demand, so basically it will be PCG2 meter and divide by the total CISO's total meter load. Is that correct? The ratio? That's how it come to the allocation?
That is correct. So we
Okay.
take we take your deviation divided by ISO, because ISO BAA, yep, correct, to get that price, and then we apply to the deviation quantity. Correct. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, Felda, I see your hand is raised, and then I saw a question in the chat. So we'll go to you, Felda, and then we'll address Luis's question in the chat. So go ahead, Felda.
Thank you, Heidi. This is Felda with PG&E. Just wanted to get a clarifications for the tier 1 and tier 2. So would there be any instances that we will see payments as well as a charge for the IR and RC for tier 1 as well as tier 2 allocations?
In general, I'm going to answer that question and then ask Mel to do that. In general, Felda, allocation is a charge, right? Because we are paying the in the main charge code, and the allocation should be charged. Are you seeing allocation with payment? I know that you have raised this question before, Felda. Are you seeing any
let's
payments?
separate that. If you could, because we
go
have a
ahead,
training
Mel.
to cover.
Go
So
ahead,
whatever you're seeing
you.
as possible issue with science, we will deal with that. We already have updated our formulas to make sure that that won't happen. if there are upstream issues coming to settlements, meaning the prices, base price are not there, we will correct those. So yeah, whatever you're saying as wrong sign, it is actually not correct. But we have
I
put
see.
in protection in, yeah, we have put protection, and we will put protection even for the just the one which we sent yesterday, because we thought that just because of rounding errors, it can make it negative, and when we divide by let's say the when we're deriving a price, either the price average becomes negative, that will be reflected. Yeah, but we're not going to put the specific floor on the price, but rather when we're subtracting the requirement minus surplus. But that's a different topic. Anyway, yeah, if we could separate that so we can proceed with the other materials for training.
Yes, thank you,
What?
Mel. So ideally,
Thank
we
you.
only see payments, not charges. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah,
No.
In this case, because this allocation, you're going to see charges instead of payments.
Charges, yeah.
Yes,
Not
sorry.
Yeah, because this is
The other way
allocation.
around. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. You meant
Yeah.
Dodo, so yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yep.
You're
Thank you.
testing them, Felda. You got them.
Right.
Yeah,
So
well,
That's
that's
funny.
Manoj.
thank,
So we also seen if there is high in no-pay quantities, it giving a negative, but that seems to be an issue. We are fixing it. So we have seen that high no-pay quantities also giving a
Yeah,
negative.
that's actually the main contributor of the wrong sign that you're saying, and we're
Right.
sorry that
That's a defect.
that really messes up your validation. Yeah, it was
Right.
incorrect for sure.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks for
coming at
that.
the
Yeah.
resource level issues, though. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for
Yeah, may
adding
I
that,
ask?
Manoj. But that's a
Yeah,
defect and we
those.
will get fixed. But can we go through this training because there are a lot of slides? Can you guys hold off the question? Thank you, Philda. Thank you, Manoj.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mel.
You can move to the next. Yeah, you can move to the next slide now.
okay. So this is where we wrap it up. So just kind of in summary for this section, the imbalance reserves up and down are procured to meet uncertainty needs between the day ahead and real-time markets. Costs are allocated through a two-tiered system, and the reliability capacity up and down is procured to ensure that there's enough resources committed to meet each of the BAA's demand forecast that has not necessarily been bid in for demand load. So Geeta, before we kind of wrap it up, if you have a quick question about this section before we move on to the next one, we'll go ahead and let you ask it right now because your hand has been patiently up. And then we'll move to the next section after this.
Thanks, Heidi. I meant to lower it. It was regarding the payments on the IR cost. There are more issues than the negative average price for the 15-minute and the high no pays. There's another ticket that I would be opening. So there are several issues that are causing the payment. So
Okay.
it's not one single issue.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. I know this team is on top of it, so appreciate you, pointing that out there. Okay, so moving on to our next topic, imbalance reserve portion of the Flex Ramp product. So Flex Ramp product is something that we've had already in real time. So, we do a lot of planning. We use forecast, system data, bids, other inputs to prepare for the flow of energy in real time. And these plans help us fine tune operations, but system conditions can still be unpredictable. And so we need to account for that uncertainty. So think of it like a hurricane. The forecast shows the projected path, but there's always some unpredictability in where it's going to actually go. So that's why we use tools like imbalance reserves in the day-ahead market and flexible ramp product in the real-time market. So there's a direct relationship between those two. They're basically doing the same thing. There's just a little different timing that is happening. And so these tools both help us manage uncertainty and maintain the both market efficiency and system reliability when the conditions change unexpectedly. So when we buy imbalance reserves, we're procuring uncertainty, which means that we're basically paying to keep extra capacity available in case things change unexpectedly. So later in real time, we also need flexibility to handle these sudden changes. So that's where the flex ramp product comes in. IR is initially covering the flex ramp uncertainty requirements. And then when we get to real time, we have to re-procure those uncertainty requirements. So in short, the imbalance reserves and flexible ramping product ensure that some of the unloaded capacity is reserved to meet these energy needs. So the important part is that, if we've already paid for capacity in the day ahead, we don't want, from a settlement standpoint, so we talked about what the purpose is, but then from a settlement standpoint, if we've already paid for capacity in the day ahead, we don't want to be paying for it again in the real time because that's being procured for the same capacity to be dispatched in real time. So for example, if we have a resource that can provide 20 megawatts of ramp capability in the 5-minute, that resource can provide flexible ramp for the 20 megawatts in the 5-minute, but also provide imbalance reserves, which is a 30-minute product. So in real time, we're just confirming that the system should hold that capacity back, not making another payment. If there are no megawatt differences between the day ahead and real time, or between the IR and the FRP, there will not be a second payment. So if those megawatts were released as energy, then they get charged the flex ramp price. The reason being that the resource was released for energy and the market had to go procure it for somebody else, from somebody else. Therefore, the market is going to need to pay that resource for its new obligation and charge the resource that was released for capacity. So for the deviation settlement, we charge the other resource the market had originally procured the 20 megawatts for. So it would be a calculation of that 20 megawatts times the higher of the flexible ramp price or imbalance reserve price. So that's because we're replacing that capacity, like we mentioned, with another resource capacity, and that changes the marginal price of that capacity. So if the resource procured for 20 and we had to replace that, and then there were, when it was replaced with 20 megawatts, they aren't paid anything. They're just reaffirming that the market is holding that capacity back and not paying any more because they were already paid. So the bottom line is that if the same capacity is used for both imbalance reserves and flexible ramp product, we're only going to pay once. Any extra charges happen only when the resource releases its reserved capacity as energy and the market needs to replace it. So we're determining, when we're figuring out what gets paid, we're determining what portion of your movement is due to the day ahead or the base schedule, which is why we're calculating a day ahead forecasted movement and a base scheduled forecasted movement. So any day ahead forecasted movement that's already incorporated into the day ahead locational marginal pricing, or LMP. And if it's a base schedule forecasted movement, it's incorporated in the bilateral pricing. So we won't, we don't want to be paying for that forecasting movement. So that's why we're taking the 15-minute forecasting movement, which is based on total scheduled movement, and subtract off your day ahead portion or base portion. So this is going to tell you what the 15-minute market, or FMM, incremental forecasting movement is, and that is what you're going to get paid. So what does this all mean? Let's say that in day ahead market, you have a generator that is, actually, let me go to the next slide here. And you've got an example here. So let's say we've got a day ahead, in the day ahead, we have a generator that's going from 80 megawatts in the hour ending 12 to 90 megawatts in hour ending 13. So that is 10 megawatts of forecasted movement that's going to be paid. If it was from the day ahead LMP, then it would get paid the day ahead LMP. If it was a base schedule, it'll get that bilateral pricing. So if we look at re-optimizing in the FMM, that resource is still starting at 80 megawatts because that's what's binding. So the forecasted movements, imbalance reserves, everything for that 24-hour period is binding. where there are advisories in real time. So when we get to the real time, you've got that 80 megawatts that's starting point, but now there's an advisory that comes in the 15-minute market, and it is showing you know, a movement to 95 megawatts. So that's 15 megawatts of forecasted movement. But since 10 megawatts was already paid the day ahead, we want to, you know, we're not going to be paying for that again, but we want to, from a market perspective, be able to address those additional 5 megawatts that we have potentially secured to meet our flex ramp up or down requirements. So from 15 megawatts, subtracting the 10 megawatts from the day ahead, that leaves the 5 megawatts. That's the imbalance flexible forecasting movement, and that settles the difference between the flexible ramp up LMP and the flexible ramp down LMP. So your forecasting movement from the day ahead is incorporated in the LMP. You know, if you have day ahead energy, there are no advisories, as I mentioned, in day ahead. It's all binding. When we clear the day ahead, we're clearing for the imbalance reserve, we're clearing for all 24 hours. In the FMM, that's where we're actually clearing for each individual 15-minute interval and anticipate what the next interval is going to be, which is what the advisory is. So this is why we held this resource back, or we dispatched that resource for energy. So if we look at the calculations for this, for the flex ramp up and the IRU, the imbalance reserve up awards, and we're just using up for this example, there's also the down. The flex ramp up and imbalance reserve up awards are settled based on awarded quantities and prices. Pretty straightforward. We're multiplying the award by the price. So as you see here, you've got the 15-minute incremental forecasted movement. That's the FMM quantity equals the FMM forecasted movement minus the day ahead base forecasted, or day ahead or base forecasted movement from a settlement, a flexible ramp up FRU settlement. The FRU settlement equals the calculation that you can see there. I don't need to read that off to you. And then you've got the imbalance reserve up settlement also for imbalance reserve up. So those are the calculations for determining the imbalance reserve, or FRP. And you'll be able to find information about these, including all the formulas, the details in these charge codes that are listed here. You see the grouping for the day ahead imbalance reserve up settlements for the tier 1 and tier 2 allocation. So we just talked about those. That's a factor in here as well as in the down direction. But then there's also charge code 7070 and for the flex ramp. And then there's also a reference to the integrated forward market bid cost recovery charge code.
Hey, Heidi, we got.
Yep. I see that we've got a stopping point here, so that's good. Let's go ahead and call in some folks. I see Chen Yu, you put your hand up first.
Thanks, Heidi. Can you go back one page on 28?
There you go.
Yeah, I have a question here. Thank you. This is very helpful. For the FRU settlement, I see this formula here. Or say, using your example, if the FRU in the real time so if you dispatch to 90, but it didn't show up, it's only 85 show up. Would that be still receiving FRU settlement, or it's, in this case, it will not occur? So I think your example, maybe one more page back. It could be a very dumb question too. So for instance, in the real time, right? And the binding, it's 80, and on here, your example, it's going to 95, but in the day ahead already secured the 90. So we'll say in the real time, it's only 85 megawatt hours in the advisory in the real time. So what will be the flex RIM payment then?
Do you want to have one of our SMEs that wants to dive into that one?
Yeah, we would still calculate, Mel here. We'd still calculate the forecasted moment calculated like
So
is
that
it
will
by
be a negative
advisory to
payment.
binding? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If
that will
okay,
be
you're
like,
asking whether it will be a payment.
yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I think
say
we calculate well, it can
minus
come out
5.
plus or
Yeah,
negative. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
It's dependent on the pricing. So yeah, it could very well be what you're expecting if it's the same sign of the price.
So you pay back actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great question. Thank you, Chenyu. All right, Steve. Steve, you're still
Yeah.
muted. Oh, there, I see you came off. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, this is Steve Keen from Edison. Can you go forward one slide to 28?
Uh-huh.
I have a question, but the flexible ramp up settlement, is that really the IRU price? Because that seems wrong. It seems that should be the FRU price. And actually, based on the previous slide, it would seem to be the difference between the FRU up and the FRU down prices.
I'm going to turn to my SMEs for that one. I don't know, Mel, maybe you can look at this one, or Manoj.
Can you repeat your question? I didn't fully get.
Okay.
Steve.
It's a FRU price. FRU price. Here in the
Oh,
settlement,
okay.
FRU
Uma
settlement
responded.
is equal to FRU quantity minus IRU quantity. We put the IRU price. IRU price is wrong, right? This is the FRU price. Isn't
So
it?
this
Flexible RAM settlement.
right here is where you're talking about?
Oh yeah,
Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a type.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back.
That's a
Yeah,
typo.
yeah,
FRU price.
yeah. The second to the last should be FRU. Yeah.
Okay, then can you go back one more slide? Because based on what's written on the bottom here, it doesn't seem to be the FRU price. It would seem to be the FRU price minus
FRD
the
price.
yeah.
Yep. Right. You are correct. Sorry. FRU price minus FRD price.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking
Sorry.
forecasted movement, yes, the pricing is actually a combination of the up and down. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you?
we meant that delta. You're right, Steve.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We'll get that fixed there. Any other questions?
Yeah, that should show forecasted movement price. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so that's it for our for this section here. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to talk about day-ahead resource sufficiency evaluation. So the resource sufficiency evaluation is a critical mechanism that is in the California ISO market, especially within the WEIM and the upcoming EDAM. So its main purpose is to ensure that each of the participating balancing authority areas brings enough resources to meet its own forecasted demand and reliability needs before relying on the transfers from other entities. So the purpose of the RSC, excuse me, it is to prevent the over-reliance on market transfers. The RSC ensures that the balancing authority areas aren't leaning too heavily on the market to cover their own shortfalls, and each one of the balancing authority areas must demonstrate that it has sufficient supply to meet its load and uncertainty requirement independently. So it promotes fairness and reliability by requiring each of the participants to be resource sufficient, and the ISO maintains equitable market participation and avoids reliability risks that could arise from one of the areas depending too much on others. So it supports market efficiency, and which is a success when an RFC is successful, it helps ensure that the energy transfers between the balancing authority areas are based on economic optimization rather than emergency support. So that improves the overall market efficiency. So the day-ahead RSC, it assesses the ISO balancing authority area in each of the extended day-ahead market balancing authority areas, and the real-time RSC that is already in place for all the WEIM entities. It is assessing each of the WEIM entities for each operating hour. So the RSCs that happen in the day ahead, they're looking over the entire 24-hour footprint for the next day. And like I said, WEIM is for each one of the hours. So each one of the, sorry, hold on just one moment. So each one of the balancing authority areas offered supply is evaluated against its demand forecast, imbalance reserves, and ancillary service requirements. Like I mentioned, for day ahead, it's over the 24-hour period. And the EDAM entity is actually actively involved in the RSC process, working to pass the sufficiency tests prior to the close of the day ahead market, which is designed to ensure that each one of the entities has that sufficient supply to meet the next day's obligations. If an EDAM entity fails the RSC, the entity might be exposed to surcharges, which act as an incentive to take proactive actions to meet the RSC requirements. And we've done training in the past about the RSC and the timeline. So this is happening between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So there's lots of opportunities to make those adjustments prior to the close of the day ahead market to make those adjustments. What is being tested as part of this? This test, as I mentioned, is happening continuously between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the day ahead, and that's part of the pre-market coordination, with the final results being binding at 10 a.m. prior to the market closing. So first, with these tests, the RSC makes assessments to an RSC resource efficiency evaluation. It is assessing whether there are sufficient energy bids or self-scheduled bids to meet an EDAM entity's forecasted load needs. So if there is sufficiency, the entity passes, you're good to go. If there's insufficiency, the market is going to look at the overall capacity in the area. Second, the RSC is looking at the ancillary service requirements to ensure that the balancing authority has sufficient contingency reserve capability available. And then it looks at the imbalance reserve that ensures that the EDAM entity has sufficient bidding capacity to meet those fluctuations throughout the day, or the difference between the average and moving load, as well as some uncertainty between the day ahead and real time. So it's kind of like the flex ramp sufficiency test, except for excuse me, except for in EDAM, the entity can bid in the specific values of both the imbalance reserve up and the imbalance reserve down, whereas the WEIM entities for the flex ramp product value there, it's determined by the market, and that's based on energy bids. So these tests are different than the tests that are done right now in WEIM entities, for the WEIM entities. So there is a little bit of an extra test, but this is what's getting assessed there to ensure that we're meeting the next day obligations. This here, I won't go into it in a lot of detail, but this provides a picture of the possible outcomes of the day ahead RSC as it flows into real time. So when entities go through the resource efficiency evaluation, passing or failing helps determine which kind of a pool are you going to be in. Are you going to be going into real time, as part of a group? Are you going to be going into there alone? The flex ramp up that we just talked about, it factors in here as well. Is there sufficiency in that area? And then that ties into AET, which is assistance energy transfer. Has the entity opted into that? Is there a cost that's associated with that because you have opted in? or not, or if you're not in that, then you're risking exposure to maybe higher costs as well. But it determines how you're going to be evaluated, and if there are limitations on how how you go into the market, it could actually limit your ability to be in a larger pool of resources. So the resource efficiency evaluation, it's multi-layered, and it encourages sufficiency both from an individual and a group level. It preserves market diversity benefits where possible. So again, the more that you can pass, you can be in with the group, the broader the diversity you have with being able to ensure reliability. And there is financial accountability where there are deficiencies. So again, this is just setting it up for it. It's not when things are being dispatched. It's just the test that happens before the market can start to solve. So this is a process that's there. So from a settlement standpoint, excuse me, what is the RSC surcharge? So the RSC surcharge applies when a balancing authority area fails the day-ahead resource sufficiency evaluation test. So this test checks if the BAA has enough resources to meet its obligations before the market runs, and if they don't, there is a surcharge that would be applied. Who is that going to apply to? It applies to both the ISO BAA and the EDAM BAAs, because as I mentioned earlier, when EDAM goes live, the ISO is also an EDAM entity. So if any of us, the ISO, if any of the other EDAMs, like PAC being the first one goes in there, if they fail the resource efficiency evaluation test, they're subject to penalties. I'll keep moving here and then we'll go for questions here in a moment. So how are these penalties calculated? There are 3 tiers of surcharges, but they're based on 2 things: the size of the failure, how many megawatts they might be short, and then the relevant price. That's either the locational marginal price or the trading hub price. So the bigger the shortfall and the higher the price, the bigger the penalty is going to be. So how does this settlement work? So if you get the charge, which means you fail, this is the sub-allocation to the meter demand. So once you get to the BAA on surcharge, and allocation is based on that ratio. And then you've got the ISO sub-allocation of the revenue, and that's where the ISO BAA sub-allocates the surcharge to its participants, and that's based on meter demand. And then EDAM BAAs are going to allocate their shares to their entities. So how does this work? Continuing on this, so from an RSC revenue distribution, that's where the net transfer comes in for BAAs. So that includes the ISO, as I mentioned before. So for the EDAM BAAs, the surcharge revenue is distributed to those BAAs that passed the day-ahead RSC test, and it's based on their net transfer system resource, or TSR, export ratio. So it's allocated to those who pass the test in the correct direction, and that could be either in an up or down failure. So the ISO BAA suballocates that surcharge revenue to its participants. That's going to be based on the meter demand minus the balanced ETC or TOR, and then the EDAM entities will allocate their share to their entities. You'll be able to find this information in charge codes 8080 and 8088. So the RSC surcharge settlement, that applies to both the ISO BAA and the EDAM BAAs, and this is the RSC surcharge, which is the penalty for failing, and then 8088, or the resource efficiency evaluation surcharge allocation, that again applies to the ISO BAA and EDAM BAAs, and it's the RSC surcharge allocation and that's the credit distributed to the BAAs that pass the test. And that is going to be based on their export or import ratio, and that's going to be depending on the direction. So let's walk through an example here, and then we'll go to questions. So if let's say that BAA1 fails by let's say it fails by 50 megawatts and it's less than 10% of the requirement, there's not going to be a settlement. So if if an entity is within this bandwidth, of the 10%, there's not going to be a settlement that's going to be applied. If it's greater than a de minimis deficiency quantity, tier 2, that applies. And, with the example here of our 50 megawatts, that would be, 100 megawatts times the $50. And so there's the calculation. So, there's just the different tiers, the 3 tiers. So no settlement within the 10%. If it's greater than that, then tier 2 will apply. And then there's also a tier 3 that applies. And you see that the percentages that would apply in the tier 2 is 1.25%, and then it's 2% based on the tier 3. So the surcharge that goes into a pool, it's going to allocate their value to the participants. That's going to, as mentioned before, based on meter demand minus the ETC TOR, and BAAs that pass get a share of that pool through the 80/88 based on their TSR export for the upward and TSR import ratio for the downward. So let's go ahead and I know we've got we've got Anthony on the phone, and so he's our subject matter expert in this area. So I say we've got great questions, and there have been some coming in, and Anthony's been answering them. So let's go ahead and go to Josh. Josh, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Good morning, Josh Arnold, GDS Associates. Quick question on the pricing for the tiered settlement. In the description, you said it was going to be the higher of the LMP or the reference price, the nodal reference price. I believe those are Mid-C and Palo Verde. How do you determine which price is used for a given BAA, especially an entity like the CAISO, where they're kind of equidistant from both?
That's a great question. And Anthony, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, my name is Anthony. I work with the Market Settlement Design and Configuration team. And so to answer your question, the price that goes into the calculation depends on the actually on whether the failure is occurring during on-peak or off-peak hours for the upward test. So if deficiency occurs during on-peak hours and it falls into the tier 2 or tier 3 deficiency, then we would use the sorry, just one moment. The max hub price between the Mid-C and Palo Verde prices, whereas for the off-peak, we use an average load-weighted lap price.
Okay. As requested, if that could be documented, I wasn't able to find that in the charge code description. But that's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Chen Yu.
Yes. On this example on page 39, I wonder if the quantity should be 50 megawatt hour instead of 100. On the BAA1, fail by 50 megawatt hour.
Hi, Chenyu. Yeah, I think you're correct because the second and third bullets have the 100 megawatt deficiency quantities, and that failure quantity would be the what's in the first like heading bullet. So thank you for raising that. The difference between the second and third bullets, though, are for the tier 2 or tier 3 application, you could have a scenario where 100 megawatts triggers the tier 2 settlement if it's less than, if that 100 megawatt deficiency quantity is less than 50% of the IR requirement, but greater than 10, or yeah, but greater than a de minimis amount, then that would be tier 2. You could also have tier 3, have it fall into tier 3 under that 100 megawatts if the requirement is greater than, if the deficiency is greater than 50% of the requirement.
I see. Yeah, it's good to have the conditions there. So it's kind of confusing. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, can you, like, when you guys publish this, can you add the conditions there? So, I mean, if you are going to use this 100, then it will be good to have the condition says that what is the quantity, the required quantity, and yeah, to have the comparison. But if just follow this example, I think 50 megawatt makes sense. Go into the calculation. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll work with Anthony
can,
to get that. Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
I'm sure we're gonna say the same thing. We can expand on the example to like introduce the requirements so that you can see why it's falling into tier 2 versus tier 3. And we can do that before publishing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. I think that answers Alva's question that's in the chat as well. So, so thanks for that. And I thought there was a question from Felda that got answered as well. So I think we're good with, I think everybody's questions have gotten answered in the chat. Please let us know if we missed any. But Uma, go ahead. I see your hand is up.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Heidi. Anthony, that was very good explanation. I myself understand it very clearly. Thank you. Felda, I want to let you know that you can see there is a report in CMRI. The report is called Resource Sufficiency Evaluation Binding Advisory Results, and there is a requirement breakdown by RSC constraint. So you will be able to see that information in CMRI as well. Anthony provided the settlements, but you can see the RSC failure and the requirement quantity in CMRI. Just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Uma. Yeah, maybe later on, I'll bring this up in the market sim whether that report is going to be published on time, so we kind of can mimic the real time. But that would be for a different meeting. Right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, application.
It will be published in timely manner. That's what the market means just told me. But yeah, we can follow up. Thank you.
Great. Yep, you're getting kudos, Anthony. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to help.
All right, Gita, I see your hand is up. Not hearing you, Gita. You might be double muted. Still not hearing you.
Perhaps there's some audio issues, but maybe invite you to put your question in the chat and we could address it that way.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, any additional questions? And we'll keep the chat open for you, Gita, if you want to throw your question in there. So any additional questions about the RSC and the settlements? And like Anthony said, we'll expand on this before we paste. Oh, Gita, now we can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry. Some audio
Nope.
issues here.
No
So
problem.
my question to Anthony or Uma, is that report gonna help us to actually validate the BAA? Because that's the challenge right now, right? In settlement, we really don't have visibility as to the accuracy of the amount that we're getting as a surcharge.
Geeta, thank you for
Thanks.
the question. I believe so, but I'll double confirm that with the market people. Settlement part, Anthony can reply. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Uma, for looking into the report part. Just may have been clarified previously, but for entities within the CAISO BAA, there will be a sub assessment of the RSC surcharges as well as a sub allocation of the surcharge revenues that are allocated out for passing the RSC test in 8088 based on the meter demand. So yeah, we will find that report for you so you can get more detail on the CAISO's performance on the RSC.
Okay, but the information, the detail is really not gonna help us validate whether the 5,000 that's getting, let's say the $5,000 that's getting prorated to our load is actually accurately calculated. Or will it help us do that validation?
There will be bill determinants for a meter demand ratio and CAISO's RSC settlement in charge code 8080. So you will be able to see the share for SE of that RSC
the
surcharge.
ratio, the ratio I know that's clear, that's already available. But whatever amount is getting assessed, the total BAA, that we can validate, right?
That you should be able to validate that based on the charge code, but can get back to you on that based on the bill determinants and the charge code. Yeah.
Okay. I'll follow up outside of the train.
Okay.
Anthony,
Thank
can
you.
you, this is
Thank
Chenyu,
you.
can you keep us in the loop for this if you give Geeta the example? We would like to have the visibility as well as we struggle to validate this charge code.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be happy to help with that.
Right, because we will actually, this is from concept wise, it's very clear. I guess maybe I was hoping that this training will actually have some example to map to the bill determinant and map to CMRI or OASIS input as well. That's why I still kind of, part of it still not, we're not able to see all the way through. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll chat internally with the team and get back to you on that point so we can ensure that there's a clear validation. Thank you.
All right, and I see a question from Felda. Would it be possible to list the report's name to validate the BAA? So I'll work with the team to get that added. So
Will do. I will add it. I'll add it here. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Uma. And we'll add it to the follow-up from the meeting as well. All right, any additional questions? Okay. All right, so that concludes our 3 topics. So from an EDAM settlement connections, as we mentioned before, a lot of you are already fully engaged, but participating in the settlement user group and onboard track meetings is really important, as well as, so track meetings if you're an EDAM entity, any customer meetings that might be out there, public meetings, get to know the documents, participate in market simulation. And so we don't have any future classes planned at this time. You can find information on the release planning page. A lot of great information that this team has been putting out there. And just as a reminder, there are the different user groups, technical, release user group, and then settlement user group. So a lot of the questions that you're asking, I know you're getting those questions answered in the settlement user group. So please keep attending those, and we'll kind of leverage those. If there's a question, maybe we need to help the team, develop out a training or something, we will kind of go that route. Like I said, we don't have any other training scheduled. So highly encourage you to ask your questions there. And then market simulation, of course, going to those meetings, those are public on the calendar, and you can also get those by invite. So please be sure to continue attending those and getting your questions answered. And there, is a business practice manual. There are meetings that are there. There is an EDAM draft BPM that is posted on the release planning page, and we are working on a supplemental one as well that will be posted in January. So, before we go here, one last opportunity. Are there any questions for the team or for the group before we wrap up this training? Or
Heidi, just want to say thank you and the settlement team that for CAISO to add this training. It adds a lot of clarity. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shinyu. Yes, I wanted to definitely agree with you that the team, they've been working so hard, and there's still so much to do, so much to validate. But they took time out because they do really want to make sure that you guys are getting the answers that you need. And as things continue to play out, they'll be able to provide more information. And from a training standpoint, we are going to be working on other materials like a settlement CBT. That's one of my next goals, but not till January. We're going to take a little bit of a pause here and start a settlement CBT and some other things there. So we look forward to continuing to share information with you, and we will also be utilizing some of the things that come through with Citi. We do have an FAQ guide that's out there. There is a settlements portion on that. We'll probably start beefing that up as well. So that is on our training center. That's in a lot of different places. We want to make sure you get that FAQ guide. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude. There is a link that we're going to send out to you for a survey. We encourage you to fill that out and let us know how we did. What other trainings you might want to see in 2026. So that, excuse me, that will help us improve future trainings. So we'll send that out along with an updated deck to fix some of the issues and provide a little bit more detail where it was noted. And then we will be posting the presentation of this, the recording, as well as the slide deck, and we'll be posting that on our training center. It will be under the Western Energy Markets tab, and you'll be able to see it under recent documents as well. But please give us a couple of days so that we can make those changes. We get all the materials so that we can get that posted for you. So thank you very much for your participation, and thank you, Anthony, Uma, Manoj, and Mel. Thank you so much for your time here. James Lynn also provided a great deal of this information. So thank you all very, very much for your time, your participation. And Uma, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I have a quick thing, Sandra. I do have the report name, but I am not able to see that in map stage CMRI. So I will work with because somebody provided I know the report name. Report name is as follows. I'm going to put it in the chat, but I am not able to access that. So we will provide you the details in the presentation. We'll give it to Heidi, and Heidi will include that in the training. Okay, just want to let you know that.
Thank you, Uma. And I have no doubt, because you've been very persistent in following up and really going above and beyond to help us out. So I really appreciate it. And also to all of the CAISO's staff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Uma.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Zelda.
Thank you.
All right. And again, thanks to Bo for being a great producer today. And I hope you all have a very happy and safe holiday and get a little bit of rest, because I'm sure that the race is not going to stop in 2026. So have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, CAISO team.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.